Welcome to episode 58 of the What Happens Next podcast, the podcast dedicated to talking about and thinking about the challenges and opportunities we've got when we're navigating change in our 50s, 60s and beyond. And it's interesting when we look at the What Happens Next YouTube channel about how popular certain subjects are. When I'm talking, the financial subjects are quite popular on the YouTube channel. But actually, when we interview guests, the ones that are popular time and time again are on nutrition and health and fitness. But also, this interview was particularly popular on our YouTube channel. Because in this interview, we interview the brilliant Dr. Neil Stanley about sleep. Now, I know from the experiences with members of my family, friends, and people I know that sleep often becomes harder the older we get. So Dr. Neil Stanley talks about how we can have better sleep, the strategies we need to consider when thinking about our sleep, and the surprising things that we can do to wake up just a little bit more refreshed. I hope you enjoy the interview. Part of the issue we've got when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives is having the self-awareness, having the introspection to be able to think about what the gaps in our well-being are. And we're doing loads of work at the minute with What Happens Next to build solutions that are going to help you think about well-being in a nuanced way when you're thinking about how it applies to your life. One of the first things we've built that you can use today is our What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, but what it will do is give you an insight into the areas of strengths when it comes to your well-being and the areas you might want to improve. You can take the What Happens Next quiz at whathappensnext.life/quiz, and I hope it helps you in your journey to work out what happens next for you. Welcome to this interview from What Happens Next, the channel dedicated to helping you, if you're in a point of transition in your life, think about some of the elements that you might have ignored for years, and now as retirement is coming into play, or whatever you choose to do next is coming into play, is all about sharing insights that's going to help you with that transition. And it's interesting because a lot of my clients who come and see me at Savello for help to build their financial plans become fairly health conscious. They've been in stressful environments at work, and part of the reason they want to make the change and ultimately know whether they've got enough money to make the change is because they want to make positive moves in the direction of health. Now, I'm no health expert, which is the reason we invite experts on to What Happens Next to have conversations. But broadly speaking, I see health in three main areas: exercise, nutrition, and sleep. And I can't believe after so many What Happens Next interviews, we've never had a sleep expert on. That ends today because we've got the brilliant Neil Stanley on to talk about sleep. Neil, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks very much.
Good. Really pleased to have you on. As a start for 10, for those of our audience who don't know about you, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into your specialist area.
Well, my name's Dr Neil Stanley. I'm a PhD, not a medic, and I've been involved in sleep research for now 43 years. How did I get into sleep? By complete and utter accident. I went to secondary school, did okay in O-levels, thought I'd go to sixth form and then university and then I don't know what. Hated sixth form. I thought I was an adult and they treated me like a child or something like that. So applied for the first job that had anything to do with science in my local area, which is Farnborough in Hampshire, and got a job at the Institute of Aviation Medicine in Farnborough, which was a RAF station, and they, at the time, back in 1982, had the largest sleep lab probably in Europe. because the Royal Air Force still had long duration capability. So Hong Kong. A few months later, we fought the Falklands conflict and that sort of thing. So jet lag, shift work, aircrew performance were all very important, and that's it. 43 years later, it's been my all-consuming passion. It's been the way I've made money enough to live. If I'm not talking about it, I'm writing about it. If I'm not writing about it, I'm reading about it. If I'm not doing any of those, I'm actually doing it.
I was going to say, it's probably worth making sure that you're not writing and talking about it so much that you're not getting some sleep in as well.
I prioritize my sleep above anything else. It is. I can't, after all these years, say that I don't do my best for my sleep each and every night.
Yeah. What does the largest sleep lab in Europe look like? Is that just paint me a picture of that?
Well, I mean, when I left Surrey University, which is about 12 or 15 years ago now, we had a 24-bed unit. And essentially, which I designed and constructed, part of that was a 12-bedded ward, like a sort of a normal hospital ward, to be honest. Yeah. But the key thing was the 12 bedrooms that we had built, which were described as the finest places anywhere on the planet for a good night's sleep. They were completely dark, completely quiet, very rigidly temperature controlled, and basically they looked like a dark blue cell. There were suspended rooms, so there were 10 centimeters of acoustic tiling, then 10 centimeters of foam, which isolated it from vibrations, and then 10 centimeters of brick. So basically, you could slam the door in the room. I'm staying in a hotel at the moment, and we all had that experience of staying in a hotel where the guy next door, the guy across the road, they slam the door any time of the night. You wake up. Well, in Sleep Lab I designed, you could slam the door for as much as you like, and it wouldn't disturb the other person. You could have had the world's loudest snorer in the room next door, and the noise would not have even registered in the bedroom next door. So those bedrooms were designed purely for sleep. People would say, "Oh, they're awful. They look horrible. They literally do look like a cell." And the key thing about that was, it doesn't matter. You're going to be asleep. You can have your eyes closed. You're not going to notice it. So, as I say, we designed these bedrooms mainly for doing clinical trials, so looking at the effects of medication on sleep, and also manipulating sleep by modifying different stages of sleep by various different manners. And so it was a research exercise that we had these, and they were great. So let's say that was a 24-bed unit, which I still think is probably the largest still in Europe.
And who volunteered? Was it people in the base? Was it the public? How did it work?
Well, because we're the University of Surrey, much of what we were doing is in the classic young, healthy male, of which universities have quite a lot of. But we did also do studies in various age ranges, and essentially it was about getting good relationships with the community around us, to have people volunteering. So we have done, numerous studies in the elderly, looking at how sleep changes as we get older, and that sort of thing. So it was about, as I say, getting volunteers from the local population.
Yeah, and they're issues that I want to explore, because a lot of the people who watch what happens next during their 50s and 60s and are finding their self, and I've had conversations with a lot of my clients about this, finding their sleep patterns changing. So that's one thing that I definitely want to do. Talk to me about what the research says about the benefits of better quality sleep. So what if you're comparing somebody who's sleeping okay and somebody who's sleeping well, versus if you go at the other end of the spectrum, somebody who's sleeping really poorly, what does a really good quality night's sleep give you?
It gives you everything. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the three pillars that you see about health. Well, sleep underpins the other two. If you want to eat healthily, you need to sleep well. If you want to exercise, you need motivation to exercise. That comes from getting a good night's sleep. So a lot of people describe these things as pillars, and that's wrong, because pillars don't touch each other. That's the whole point of pillars, is they're separate. Yeah. And the key thing is sleep underpins every aspect of your life. So getting a good night's sleep will make you happier, healthier, in all aspects of your life, both emotionally and mentally. We know people with poor sleep have a higher rate of divorce, have more arguments with their partner, less empathy with their partner. If you have poor sleep, you eat more sugar. Very, very simply, you eat more sugar in whatever way. You have more cravings for sugary and fatty foods. As I say, you lack that motivation to do exercise. If you have poor sleep and you do exercise, you're at a 75% increased risk of a sports-related injury. Sleep's about optimizing the immune function. So if you have a poor night's sleep, the next day you're 3 times more likely to catch the common cold, simply because you've had a poor sleep. And of course, we all know that when you get ill, what you need to do is to get into bed and sleep. But what far too many people do, have this sort of mental attitude of, I'll power through it, I'll be fine. Well, no, you won't. You're weakening, your immune system is weakened. It can't fight off the infection. So you will stay ill longer because you haven't had a good night's sleep. So, as I say, sleep is absolutely fundamental, because essentially sleep, from an evolutionary point of view, if anything has a brain, it sleeps. And sleep has existed in the evolutionary record for about 450 million years. Now we're much more recent appearances on the scene, but sleep has been central for all these years, and we sleep the way we've always slept, the way we always will sleep. It seems incredibly stupid to spend approximately a third of our life being very vulnerable, i.e. being asleep, when we could be attacked either by things that can eat us or by the next village who are jealous of whatever and they want to attack us. It seems very stupid to do that unless it was very important. And the fact that we haven't changed the way we sleep, we haven't been able to reduce the number of hours we sleep, just shows that it is absolutely vital, important to every aspect of your life. So it's about getting a good night's sleep each and every night of your life.
Love it. Absolutely love it. What, so because you've been studying sleep so long, I'd imagine the research has evolved and changed, and you're thinking about sort of different things when it comes to sleep. Did you say 42 years? No.
It's 42 years at this moment, but I'm sure by the time that this goes out, it'll be 43. That's this Saturday. It'll be 43 years.
Amazing. What's the start point? Was that when you got your PhD, or was it when?
No, that was when I started working at Farnborough. I mean, as I say, literally thrown in the deep end on my first day, doing research on some radar operators and their shift patterns, looking at their sleep. So that was my start of it all.
Because everything you allude to, I can see in my own life. I went to the gym last night. Normally I would train in the morning, and because I was more tired, I lacked as much motivation compared to if I trained during before I start work. So I can see everything. But I suppose the other big thing, particularly with the work you did with people on the base, is focus, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So how do we see the impact on sleep, on focus at work or in life?
Yeah, I mean, sleep deprivation or poor sleep doesn't affect your ability to concentrate, to focus. So when I mentioned the radar operators, they were looking at seeing if targets were coming onto the screen in the middle of the night. Now you sort of unfocus. You aren't aware of things in the periphery. You lose that thing. We lose judgment. We lose our reaction times are impaired. We also aren't discriminate. So we react. So if you've got a soldier, they will act, and their shooting accuracy is not impaired, but their judgment is impaired. So they'll just shoot anybody really accurately rather than shooting the enemy. So there's all of those sorts of things
Interesting.
are affected, and as I say, mood is affected. But it's that judgment, that ability to process information, to see workarounds, to see patterns in data. Those things are affected.
So does that move on? If we're making more complex judgments on things, should we do that instead of thinking we need to, as you say, power through? Should we make sure we're more well rested when we're making those judgments?
Oh, absolutely. The idea of these people who work 16-hour days thinking they're being productive is complete nonsense.
Yeah, great.
And if you have got, there's the old advice, the old adage is sleep on it. If you've got a big problem, it's far better to sleep on it, find the solution, and act on it when you're well rested than trying to deal with it when you're sleepy. You just won't be able to come to it, and that's the whole thing. If you think of a sort of an analogy of this, is when you lose your car keys, and you rush around trying to find your car keys, and you'll never find your car keys. But the minute you sit down and stop looking for your car keys is when you'll remember where your car keys are. And that's exactly what sleep is doing. Sleep is giving you the quiet time to find and process and judge and to retrieve all that information that you may have, which when you're busy, in inverted commas, you can't do.
Yeah, I love that. So I started to ask a question, and as I typically do, Neil, I thought of a better question and replaced it. So let's go back to the original question. Nearly 43 years worth of experience. I'd imagine, and you can tell me, the research has evolved. What do we know about sleep now that we didn't know then?
A lot, but nothing.
Right.
What is interesting, it depends how you define what do we know. When I started work, literally there was one book on the shelf in Smith's or in Waterston's or what about sleep, Ian Oswald's book. Now there are thousands. I mean, my personal library is nearly 3,000 sleep books. So there's, and there was one journal. It was called Sleep, bizarrely. Now I can't keep up.
That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, I can't keep up with the amount of published information that there is about sleep.
Yeah,
so we're producing more and more information, but the advice to a person as to how to get a good night's sleep hasn't changed. Hasn't changed really in 150 years. Some of the early sleep books, Andrew Board's book from 1547, you could probably, if you made it into modern day English, you could probably sell that as a new sleep book with just as good advice. So scientifically, we know a lot. We're no closer to knowing why we sleep. We're no closer really to understanding the function of sleep. But we're very far away from understanding how people have bad sleep and therefore how people get good sleep, if you see what I mean. The advice really hasn't changed. And that's the worrying thing, is that, as I say, we become cleverer, but we're not becoming any more helpful.
Well, I mean, it's the nature of the modern world as well, that there's more information, but many of it says the same stuff, right?
Well, there's a lot of reinventing the wheel. I mean, I've been around long enough to read things and go, oh, that was done 30 years ago. You obviously haven't done your literature review that far back, because you thought everything 30 years ago was primitive.
Here's the new idea, but it's not.
Yeah, I see that every day. Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to talk about those three specific areas you mentioned when you were talking about building your sleep environment. First, dark. So clearly, when we want to sleep, it needs to be dark. The bit that I'm really curious about is the impact of light in the morning.
Yeah,
So
very, very simply, it really couldn't be simpler. Dark is the signal for night, for,
yeah,
for sleep. Light is the signal for awake. It takes about 4 minutes of sunlight to tell you that it's time to be awake. So, getting light in the morning is a way of telling the body, hey mate, you're awake. You
yeah,
should be doing things. And then when it gets dark in the night, that is the signal to say this is the time for bed. The reason for this, very simply, is because our nocturnal vision is appallingly bad.
yeah.
We can't do anything at night, and so when the sun goes down, we sit around the fire for a little while, but after that it gets cold, and so we go to sleep. In the morning, we can do something. So nature sort of says, right, you should be doing something. You shouldn't waste the daytime, because it is useful time to hunt or to sow or reap or whatever we were ecologically designed to do. So light in the morning is the key to say, right, get up.
And the impacts, like if you're staying at a hotel, the impacts on that synthetic light compared to natural sunlight. How did you engineer that in the rooms, and what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, essentially in the rooms, it was very simply you went into the room to sleep, so you're in the room for 8 hours. So you went in. It was dark, and then we switched the lights on, and it was light. And so we had daylight simulation bulbs, so as close to what daylight is, to use that. And so they're quite useful if you're in a situation where you can't get up and get outside, to use those. But light is, any light can be effective if it's bright enough. Sunlight is just what we've evolved under, so it's the perfect combination of what we need.
Now, the interview you're listening to today is also available to watch on our YouTube channel. If you'd like more content, exclusive content that's not available on the podcast, you can visit at What Happens Next Life. And whilst you're there, I want to ask you a favour. We want to help as many people as possible navigate, if they're in their 50s and 60s, what's going to happen next in their lives. The easiest and freest way you can do it is subscribe to our YouTube channel. So today, I'd love for you to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's no disadvantage as long as it's bright enough with synthetic light.
Yeah, I mean,
these bulbs that simulate sunlight, are they useful?
Yeah, I mean, those are the wake up bulbs, the wake up alarms that you can get, which just increase in intensity. They're not bright enough to have any real effect, but you can get specialist daylight bulbs, all those light boxes that people use for seasonal affective disorder, 10,000 lux. They're bright enough to have an effect and would be beneficial.
Interesting, really interesting. Temperature. So talk to me about the ideal temperature for sleep and what range that might be in.
Okay, you need to lose about 1 degree of body temperature in order to get a good night's sleep. You lose that body temperature out of your head and face because that's the bit that sticks out from under your duvet. So the bedroom...
I need to take my hat off.
We'll come to that. The bedroom needs to be cool, around 16 to 18 degrees. The temperature in the bed can be close to body temperature, but you heat that area up just by being in the bed.
Yeah.
So if the bedroom's too cold, you'll lose too much heat. And if the bedroom's too hot, you won't be able to shift the heat. But as I say, the bedroom needs to be around 16 to 18 degrees. So it's pointless trying to heat the room up. Yeah. If it's cold, the easiest way of staying warm is to wear a nightcap. And nightcaps only disappeared because we were able to keep the bedrooms.
Interesting.
But a nightcap is much cheaper than running your electricity or your gas all night. and far more ecologically friendly. So stick a
That is
hat on.
such an interesting tip.
Stick your hat on, stick your bed socks on, because you'll lose heat out your feet as well, and you should be toasty warm for most nights other than the coldest winter night.
Yeah, so wearing a nightcap, just make sure that if you're cold in bed, is an ecologically friendly way instead of just to love that. Absolutely love that. And I tell you one thing, and Neil, when I do these interviews, it always highlights how bad I am at the particular thing I am for the interview. For the expert I'm interviewing. But one thing I do is listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
As I go to sleep, and the nature of my technology means that when one podcast ends, another one, it just continues to give me stuff. What's the impact of that on my sleep if I've just got like sound in my ears?
Depends whether you like it or not. It would drive me absolutely crazy. I wouldn't be able to fall asleep with that happening at all. But if you like it, you like it. The whole point of getting to sleep is you need to have a quiet mind. You need to be relaxed and have a quiet mind. So if whatever you're doing, whatever it may be, watching TV, listening to the radio or a podcast or doing Sudoku or whatever before bed, if that relaxes you, then it doesn't matter what you do. But it's horses for courses. As I say, I hate noise. Noise is the one thing that I can't stand in the sleep environment. So listening to noise, however good or however interesting the noise isn't going to work for me.
I'd imagine that could be a negative as well, because if it's interesting, you talk about that quiet mind, it's unlikely you're going to get there, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you fall asleep to a podcast, that podcast obviously was not good enough to keep you awake.
Or I'm just too tired.
Well, yeah, if you're that tired, but then again, you shouldn't be that tired. That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah. Talk to me about sleep patterns as we age, because a lot of people watching this are going to be in their 50s and 60s and beyond. How has it changed as we get older?
Well, one of the things people always say is that as you get older, you need less sleep. Well, that isn't actually true, because you as an individual have a sleep need that doesn't really change from your 20s through to your 80s. What does change is your ability to get that sleep, because what happens as we get older is we start losing our deep, slow wave sleep, which is the restorative sleep. And we start losing this. Men from around mid-30s, mid-40s, women from around the mid-50s. So what this means is that sleep is less refreshing. So when you wake up, you think, well, what was the point of that? You have 8 hours sleep and you wake up and you think, well, didn't feel like 8 hours. And so that might lead you to think that you have a sleep problem because you don't feel refreshed as you did when you were 20 or so. But it may be a natural change. But you have to see that there are natural changes like this loss in slow wave sleep, but there are also things that can be treated. So something like sleep apnea, where you stop breathing during the night, that's treatable. Whereas a lot of people just go, oh, I have it. I'm old, I'm knackered, bits are falling off. Oh, woe is me. No, it's treatable, get it treated. Getting up to pee more than once a night, twice a night, that's a problem, get it treated. So we don't want to confuse just getting old with, I have to put up with it. Yeah. There are some things that can be fixed. But I say, sleep becomes naturally lighter, more disturbed. And once it is disturbed, there's less pressure for us to go back to sleep. So when you were 20, you woke up, you got up, you had a pee, you got back into bed, you fell straight back to sleep. Now you wake up, get up to pee, have a pee, get back into bed, and you're awake for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So getting up to pee was the thing that woke you up and got you out of bed, but that's not the thing that keeps you awake. So what is it that's keeping you awake? Is it pain? Is it being uncomfortable? Is it worry? What is it? So you've got to see that the thing that wakes you up is not necessarily the thing that keeps you awake. So you need to identify what bit of it you can actually do yourself, which bit you can influence. So that's really the change, that we just don't feel that sleep is giving us what we used to get. That might make you think, well, it's not important. Well, it is still as important. It's just we find it difficult. The other thing that changes more in our 60, 65, what starts change is that our circadian rhythm shifts. Now, our circadian rhythm is just our 24-hour body clock, which tells us when to be awake, when to be asleep, when to be active, when to be not active. That can start shifting earlier. So in the elderly, it can be that you start wanting to go to bed earlier, and therefore, because your sleep need is pretty much fixed, you're going to be waking up earlier. The other thing that happens with the elderly, of course, if you're not working, you have the opportunity for a nap during the day. Now, a short afternoon nap, fine. But if you have a long afternoon nap, if you have the ability to have a long afternoon nap, and you do, that's going to use up some of your sleep need. So say you need 8 hours sleep and you have 2 of those in the afternoon. Well, that means you're only going to need 6 hours at night.
Yeah.
Now, if that means you then wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go, oh, that's terrible, I'm waking up so early. Well, yes, because you've had your 2 hours in the afternoon. So
this is really interesting, and again, I don't want to use this conversation just for me, but I'm assuming that if I'm doing this, there's other people doing it too. I'm a long napper, right? I'm a napper who will put his head down, do an hour and a half. Is there a day if I get an hour and a half and then 6.5, six and a half at night? Is there a danger to that?
No, not really. As long as you're happy with it. As I say, as long as you're not waking up at 4 o'clock going, oh, I'm cold, alone, and oh, woe is me. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But if you're happy with it, of course, the countries like Spain and Italy have their siestas. And there is data. Some data saying that having a nap is a good thing. Some data says napping like that is a bad thing. So on balance, we don't know. But as I say, it's more about, does that fit into, one, your lifestyle, and two, does it make you think you have a problem, or does it make you awake at a time that you don't want to be awake, if that makes sense?
My personal answer is not at all. I love a long nap, but if it doesn't work, we need to think about changing it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's the key thing. If it doesn't work for you, look to changing it.
Yeah. Talk to me about, what was really interesting, something I didn't know, is that loss of the length of restorative sleep as you age.
Slow sleep, yeah.
What's the reason for that, and is there anything we can do to change that?
To answering the last bit first, no. What's the reason for it? Deep slow wave sleep. It's one of its big functions is growth. This is why children have loads of it. You physically grow during deep sleep, but it's also about memory and learning. So of course, by the time we're in our 40s, 50s, we're not learning a huge amount more new. We've laid down all those memories, and so essentially, the need for that slow wave sleep is less because we're not doing those things now. Of course, in our society now, to say that when we're 40 that we've learned everything about life doesn't work. But from an evolutionary point of view, if you're 40, you're the wise man of the village.
You're
who
the
knows everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to be sort of scrolling through TikTok or Facebook all the time. So we did know everything by the time we were 40, and also slow sleep is also about emotions and about dealing with connections, which is why women keep their slow sleep longer than men. Because, of course, women have children, have babies. They need to adapt to new societies, to new interactions, whereas men don't.
Okay. So if we, and again, I might be completely wrong on this, you're the expert on this, but if we continue to learn, develop and grow, and we continue to maintain social connections, has that got an inverse effect, meaning that we get to have that slow wave sleep for longer?
No, we haven't been doing this long enough for evolution.
Yeah, it hasn't
go, hang on, this has changed. Yeah. That's the problem. I mean, there's a wonderful statistic. 97% of all information ever created was created in the last 3 years. Yeah. I don't know if you know, but the New York Times on a Sunday is a massive newspaper, huge supplements, etc., etc. There's more information in one edition of the New York Times on Sunday than somebody 150 years ago would have to learn in their entire lifetime.
But as you say, our brains haven't evolved.
Our brains haven't caught up with the modern world. Yeah. So you got to also remember that 150 years ago, most of us would be dead by the time we were 40. So there was no need to preserve us because we're going to die anyway. So our brains
with life expectancy the way it is, and how our lifestyles have changed, we're now in this situation where we've got this period of time that actually, as you say, from an evolutionary perspective, we're just not used to, right?
Yeah. We can't cope with the situation as it now. So now we need sleep more than we've ever done before, but we also have more reasons not to sleep.
Yeah, so interesting. One question I had, and it's related to the point you made about information, and clearly we're a bit guilty of just putting more information out into the ether just for the purposes of doing this interview, but the social media, podcasts, YouTube, all of the stuff that's out there at the minute, what impact does too much information have on our sleep?
Well, the brain can't rest. The brain can't deal with that information. It can't easily switch off, what I mentioned about the quiet mind. And then it doesn't have time to process that during a night's sleep. So we become overwhelmed. We can't deal with that. We feel stressed, anxious, because we can't cope in these situations of life.
So what can we do about that?
Switch our mobile phones off. Read a book. All of this is very, very modern. When I started work, we did not have overnight TV in the UK in 1982. All you had was one radio station that played overnight. That was
I remember the God Save Our Queen and then the test card.
The test card coming up. So it wasn't difficult 40 years ago to get a good night's sleep. The pubs closed at 10:30. TV and that went off at 10:30. Late night shopping was 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. So there's no difficulty in going to sleep. Our society is designed in a way that is not human friendly. And so we do have a way. I mean, the CEO of Netflix a few years ago said his biggest competitor was sleep. Not any of the other streaming services, but sleep. And he wanted people not to sleep so they could watch Netflix. That was his simple, rationale.
And did the evidence backs that up, right? That we've seen a deterioration of sleep in modern times.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So let's talk about practical action then. So if we've got somebody who's watching this who's saying, I think I need to improve my sleep. And funny enough, I met somebody last week who said to me his wife suffered from sleep apnea and he'd been working so hard that his sleep patterns have changed so much that he always feels tired. I said, well, interestingly, I'm having a conversation next week that might help. So Neil, talk to me about the practical actions people can take to improve their sleep.
Well, I mean, the first thing, and it's the absolute key thing, is you have to take sleep seriously. You have to make time for sleep. Um, so, people say, 8 hours for sleep. Well, that's not strictly true. Some people need longer. I know I need 9.5 hours sleep to feel at my best, which means I have to be in bed for about 10 hours a night, to give myself time to fall asleep. So if I'm not in bed for 10 hours a night, I'm not ever going to get the sleep I need.
Yeah.
So if you say, I'm too busy, or I want to watch the next episode or listen to the next podcast, well, you're never going to get the sleep you need. You have to work out. And the amount of sleep you need is essentially the amount that allows you to feel awake, alert, and focused the next day. Yeah. So for some people, it can be as few as 5 or 6 hours. For many people, it's 7 to 9 hours. And then there are extremes. Some people need 11 hours to feel at their best. So once you know how much sleep you need to try and get it. And then essentially there are 3 things. I mean, there's loads of sleep tips out there, but they all boil down to 3 things. One is a bedroom conducive to sleep. So dark, quiet, cool, comfortable. And we've covered those. One is a relaxed body, and the final one is the quiet mind. And the quiet mind is probably the most important one. If your mind is racing, if you're stressed, if you're worried about something, you won't be able to fall asleep, because sleep is a time of quiet. Stress, anxiety is noise. So those are the 3 things. Anything above that is just, people say, you need to do this, you need to do that. Smell lavender. Well, I hate the smell of lavender. Do this or do that before bed. It's down to you, but you have to go to bed for the time you need to sleep, with a quiet mind, with no stress and tension in your body, and into a bedroom that's comfortable for sleep. That's simply it. If you do those three simple things, then, or you achieve those 3 simple things, then you will probably sleep. And so all you have to think about is anything that's happening, does it fit within the quiet mind, relaxed body, bedroom conducive to sleep? So if your partner snores, well, that's not a bedroom conducive to sleep. If you're working hard and going to bed, flopping into bed, having a pee, brushing your teeth, flopping into your bed, expecting sleep to happen, that's not a quiet mind or a relaxed body. So just map it onto those 3 concepts, and you'll see whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And it's no more complex than that.
Yeah. So I love those three elements. And I suppose there's techniques within those elements that you can use, like meditation, or
if meditation
might be one.
If meditation works for you, fine. If progressive muscle relaxation works, fine. As I say, my partner does a Sudoku before bed. I don't know how. I can't even do that during the day. I don't know how I can do that during the night. But that's her relaxation. One man's relaxation is another man's torture. Yeah. So as you were saying about listening to podcasts, having that level of noise in my head before sleep would drive me absolutely crazy. But for you, it helps. So that's whatever works for you. So having a nice warm bath, having a nice a nightcap, a small shot of whiskey or something like that. Some people can drink espressos just before bed. Some people can't. Yeah. So it's really down to you, for you just to use a bit of common sense. Does it fit within those 3 parameters or not? If not, then maybe change it.
And this is I was talking about this actually a few days ago, because a lot of the challenge I find with, in my world, in your world, in a lot of sort of expert world, is all these tips are great, but often we know the answers to what works for us, right? And it's about identifying the pillars that we, as you say, the factors that we need to think about.
The thing is,
Because if you hate meditation, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason for not giving specific advice. You have to listen to the individual. But most people know what to do. The problem is they don't do it.
Then, if most people know what to do, what stops people?
The next episode on Netflix.
Yeah, it's just compelling, isn't it? It's been designed to...
It's been. They actually reduced the time between episodes deliberately, so you didn't have the time to make the decision not to watch it. But late night shopping. Who needs to go to to a superstore at 2:00 in the morning? Nobody. Who needs to watch the net? Say you had linear TV and you had to wait a week till see the next episode. So all of these things, they are designed to be interesting. The social media is designed to suck you in, and we're like kiddies with a new toy. We play with it, even though it's not good for us, until it breaks, and we will find. At some point, we're already seeing this with the younger generation that they're socially inept, they can't solve problems, etc., because they've never had to think for themselves.
The point you make was absolutely right. It's one of those things where unless for me, the big one for 2024 and 2025 has been nutrition. Because the easiest thing to do is just eat whatever I wanted. It's been more difficult, and I've had to take more seriously what I'm putting in my body, and that's had a positive impact. But it's harder work.
Yes.
Initially, it's harder work. And that's the same with good quality sleep, isn't it? It's easier to watch that stuff on Netflix, but unless you take this stuff seriously and do something practical about it, it's never going to change.
Exactly. I mean, you can't. You can go to the shops. You can buy all the ingredients, but you're not going to get a meal out of it unless you cook it.
Yeah, great.
So this is the thing. If you don't take sleep seriously, you will never get a good night's sleep. And at the moment, there's so much that is competing against sleep that people will go, "Oh yeah, I'll go to sleep once I've done all of these other things." Rather than me, I will go to sleep, and I don't care if I miss out on all of those other things because sleep is important.
But you also get to understand that the things we worry about aren't really important anyway.
Well, absolutely.
So that could be a long philosophical conversation, couldn't it? So we'll leave that one for today. A lot of our people who watch this, because this is designed to help people going through that transition in life and making change to either, we're not fans of the concept of conventional retirement on what happens next, because actually we think if we're in our 50s and 60s, a period of time that I'm fast approaching, there's potentially another sort of three, as you say, another generation we're not used to living, that we can potentially do stuff we love and like. But changing our work environments, our lifestyles to whatever we choose to do in this period of our lives can be stressful. And for a lot of our clients, it typically is. Tell me a little bit about how we get better sleep or think about sleep when we're going through change that might increase our stress levels.
Well, I mean, one thing to think about is if you are moving away from a regulated lifestyle, the 9 till 5 lifestyle, into a lifestyle that doesn't have that, well, this can actually provide a great opportunity for you to take ownership and mastership of your sleep, because you don't have to get up with the alarm clock, and you don't have that commute, and you don't have to send the 11 o'clock email copied through to everybody at night. So it may be an ideal time to use and structure your days around improving, getting a best night's sleep as well. But again, the best way of dealing with stress is to get a good night's sleep. It's as simple as that. Sleep should be the foundation on which you build any change upon should have sleep as its central component. Once you do that, then as I say, if you are going through stress, the most important thing you can do is to prioritize and make sure you get as good a sleep as possible. It's as simple as that. It will make everything easier.
Yeah, brilliant. Neil, if members of our audience want to find out a little bit about the work you do, where can they find that out?
Well, I've got 2 books out. One is called How to Sleep Well, which came out a few years ago. My new book is about a sleep divorce, how to sleep apart, not fall apart. And it's the world's first book about sleeping separately, which is a good thing to do if your partner annoys you during the night. Sleep separately and make that as a lifestyle choice. So they're both available on the leading booksellers. And my website is thesleepconsultancy.com, sleep consultancy all as one word. So that's where anybody can find me.
No, normally we end the interview there, but you've piqued my curiosity. Talk to me about sleeping separately as opposed to together.
Well, sleeping together is a very modern phenomenon. And it's a completely unnatural phenomenon. It's only practiced by people who are essentially poor because they don't have room to sleep separately. The rich sleep separately, because I did a study, probably the world's first study back in 2005, showing that much of your sleep disturbance is caused by your bed partner. They either snore, have sleep apnea, kick, punch, fart, whatever they do. So sleeping separately, where you have your own bed, which you can then make as comfortable or accessorize in any way you like. It means you can have the temperature, you can have the door, window open, window closed, whatever, rather than having to compromise with your other person. So myself and my co-author Jenny Adams from Australia, we're both separate sleeper practitioners. We do it in our lives. And so we got together, Jenny writing more about the social aspects, me more about the sleep aspects, saying that as you get older, because the children have flown the nest, you may have separate space now. And this whole mythology that if you sleep separately, that means your marriage is under threat is complete nonsense. It's actually the natural, normal way to sleep is to sleep separately. So that's where the book came from.
Well, I'm going to pick up both of those books. So thank you for those tips. Thank you for your time today. I've loved it, and I know that our audience will have really benefited from everything you've shared. Hopefully, you've found that useful. Please comment below if you're in a position where you'd like to say something. Neil, thank you again for your time. I've really enjoyed the interview.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks very much.
So that was the interview with Dr. Neil Stanley. Let us know what you thought, and we'd love your comments. Please feel free to add your comments wherever you're listening or watching this. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the podcast then.